there were nights that I would wake up in these cold sweats and with this feeling that I was still stuck in North Korea. I would have these nightmares, and I would literally wake up soaking in sweat, and I was literally dreaming about being stuck there. And at the front of the village that we were in, they had like these guards posted, so even if you wanted to, you couldn't leave there. They had a very strict perimeter where you could go, and that really wound up influencing me later on to get involved with the North Korean ministry. And I do want to share something about this experience that I think is applicable in our lives. I have a lot of mixed feelings about whether or not going there was the right thing or not. I don't know if I'd recommend it. I have a hard time to say if I probably wouldn't recommend it at all, but I did have these experiences, and it does allow me to talk about it. So in that sense, I think it's been a bit beneficial. Um, I was supporting financially a North Korean refugee family, and you can actually see the videos of them on this missions page. We did multiple interviews, and I remember something that struck me so hard that happened after several months. The guy wound up telling me something. He said, he's like, you know what, Isaiah, everything I know about North Korea, the government, he says, I know that it was wrong. I know that the government lied to me. But he said that anti-Americanism was instilled in me at such a young age. He's like, I know you're a good person. I know you're helping us. And he was like, but there's this natural fear that it's hard for me to get over in my mind. And that caught me so off guard, because I realized the level in which these people were brainwashed so much to that years later, even after being removed, he was still wrestling with this. And so I could relate that in a sense that, years after being a chronic womanizer myself and having no regard for women, the kind of damage that I inflicted on myself is something now, as a father, as a husband, I still have to fight those urges, those inclinations I have to want to go back to that lifestyle. And it's a daily struggle to keep on the right path. But this experience and experiencing my friendship with this man really helped me to understand that there's some deep-seated things inside us all that we need to constantly be working on and keeping in check. And I do want to share something else that I saw there. This is gonna be it's a crazy experience. Probably won't even seem real when I tell you about what actually happened, but we had the option to pay $30 to see these North Korean acrobats. And if you know anything about just Japanese or Chinese acrobats in general, you see them doing some stuff what the heck? How are they doing this? I mean, I saw one where this young boy was literally on his head, and somehow he was jumping on these platforms, going up a ladder, basically balanced on his head, and somehow able to do that. And that was actually Chinese, but I wind up seeing, Google or YouTube, Chinese acrobats, see what you see. But these North Korean acrobats I saw, one of the things, probably maybe the craziest thing I've seen with my own eyes. If I wouldn't have seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe this. So if you told me that this happened, I'd be like, no, there's no way that's possible. But this is what happened. So a guy gets out and starts riding around on a unicycle, which is hard enough, right? You ever try to ride on a unicycle? It is hard. It is dang near next to impossible to balance yourself up there. But you practice, you can get used to it. But what happened is this guy comes from behind him and climbs up on his back, and then they start riding around together. And then the guy on the back pulls out this 20-foot jump rope, and they just start jumping up and down on the unicycle again. The guy on the bottom somehow able to bounce that thing up, and the guy on the top's able to keep balance. But after he got off, the guy on the unicycle somehow jumped off of the unicycle and landed on the wheel and then started riding around the wheel by itself. Like, I know that how fake that sounds. If you would see that, you'd probably think it's CGI or something, because explaining this doesn't seem possible. I mean, as I said, I saw it, and I was a little bit tipsy off of honey beer at the time, I might add. So it was like, wow, it really added to the performance. I couldn't believe it. But that there's a reason why I'm talking about that. And because as amazing it was to see it, you see some stuff there and it's just like, it should really make you stop and scratch your head for seconds. Some of the things you might see, for example, there is this, I'll put a clip up right here. These Korean kids who are like playing the guitar, and these kids are like, there's no way a kid should be that good at a guitar. Like, it's ridiculous. It's insane. And when you come to understand that the people who are chosen for these gymnastics and stuff, they're chosen at a very early age, because they literally will force like the whole country to participate in these acrobatic and like displays. If you take a look at some of the displays that they do it's called the harrowing games. Again, I'm sure if you saw that live, you just wouldn't believe that you're actually physically seeing that. I think Madeleine Albright in America under Clinton, she wound up going to North Korea and they put on this display for her. And she was just kind of like, I'm here to help these people like with food and the situation. And they're like clearly just blowing a lot of money like this. So she's like, couldn't understand why are you putting on this kind of display if you need help? You know, it's like if someone asks to borrow money and then you go to their house and they're trying to pretend like they're bawling or whatever, you know, popping open champagne or whatever, you would know that there's just something is wrong here. So, but the point of that being is that seeing the fact that they could put on a display like they did for her, and they do every year at the Ariane Games, like 100,000 people participate in this exercise, and they have all these colors and acrobats. But the thing is that they force the people to do this, right? They're forced to do this for hours and hours and hours a day. In fact, there's a really great documentary you can watch called A State of Mind about this exact thing, about preparing for the Ariane Games, and how this relates to the acrobats or the musicians is that they're just forced to give up they're forced to do this for hours and hours. So if you're forced to do this for hours and hours a day, week after week, year after year, you could see why they were able to do stuff like that. I mean, another thing I saw, which again, I think physically, physics and logic and physiology would tell you that this is not possible right here. But I'll tell you, I definitely saw this. So these guys were climbing up on these poles and they turned themselves sideways, which I can imagine is pretty hard to do. If you can imagine like grabbing onto a pole with both of your hands and then turning yourself sideways. I mean, I've seen people do that. So it's not saying that that's not impossible, because I mean, you just have to be really focused and really flexible and really strong at the same time. Probably mentally strong as well. But I saw one guy do this, and again, I can't understand how this could actually happen, but he actually took off one of his hands, so he's balancing there completely sideways, and with one hand, I don't understand how your arm could support all of that. But point being is that, yeah, it looked amazing, but just understanding the deeper problems behind this, the communism and the atheism that has influenced them down there. You just understand, like, if this is what you're truly believing, you truly believe in atheism, and you're trying to create this perfect society, like without God, you can understand there's this slippery slope of your mentality that could go down, and understanding why some of the atheistic regimes who have existed have done some of the worst crimes against humanity, talking about probably well over 100 million people killed just in 70 years. So talked about, Ceausescu, Kim Il Sung, Pol Pot. I mean, I've seen in Cambodia, I've seen skulls stacked up 5,000 high, like inside of a glass case. I got to visit a torture museum, but it was in a former high school. So they took this high school, a place of education, and they turned it into like a torture house. It's called Tul Slung. And I got to go there, and you could I can genuinely tell you, I only felt physically felt evil like twice in my life. One of those times was in North Korea, and another time Cambodia. And as they say, like the hair on the back of your head, just thinking about it literally just gives me chills. So horrible. But you understand how someone like Pol Pot gets their justifications in their mind for the madness that they want to do. So I'm not saying all atheists behave like that or would do things like that, but you just understand, if you're saying like Kim Il Sung that there's not a God, I can create myself into a God. Because a lot of people accuse North Korea of being religious, and in a sense it really is, but you can understand that if someone does not believe that they're going to be held responsible for their actions like after death, you just really got to understand some slippery slopes that some people might go down. I use another example of someone like Jeffrey Dahmer, who really said that his atheism wound up contributing to him killing people and believing that these people just genuinely did not have any intrinsic value to them. So it was whenever he rejected Christianity and adopted evolution over creationism, and believing that God had created people in his image and put some kind of value on their life. If you reject that, then you can understand that there's some pretty brutal consequences that might happen as a result of that. So anyway, Jeffrey Dahmer wound up getting, after he was caught, he did wind up having a religious conversion back, but he talked about how that wound up influencing him whenever he left Christianity behind and adopted atheism. And obviously not every atheist goes and eats people. Most atheists I think that I've encountered are like genuinely they're good people. This is not a bash atheists themselves, but you just got to understand that the theology of even rejecting God, that there's some implications that happen as a result of that. Like you're not going to have an eternal soul. You're not going to be reunited with the loved one. You're not going to be held accountable past the grave. So if you were able to escape justice on this planet, then you're good. Then whatever you're able to do, you're able to get away with it. So I talked about in the first video, this caused a crisis of faith in my mind, and I didn't become a Christian as a result of this, by no means, but it was one of those things I was like, do I really believe this? Can I really find a way to condemn this? And to do the most obvious thing and say that this is obviously wrong, I need to be able to condemn this, and I have no leggings, no footing to stand on to say this is objectively wrong. I might say that I subjectively don't think that it's right, but Kim Il Sung, how would I project my values onto him? He genuinely believed that there was no God, and that these people were a result of evolution, and these people lack any intrinsic value. And the way that you would use an animal, he had no problem to do that to human beings. So, the sum of these experiences I've talked about, I try to write about it, and part of it, it's like there's some things that you really cannot give an accurate demonstration of what you're feeling, or what you've experienced. Like if I were to explain to you some of the outdoor markets that I visited in Cambodia or Haiti, when there's just meat rotting in the sun and flies and just filth everywhere, the kind of smells that produces, and just the kind of gag reflexes you would have seeing, just some really unsanitary stuff. It's hard to capture that in words. Like I could explain it to you, but then just the reality of seeing poverty and suffering, or you get a little bit of it on TV whenever you see it, and you see the kids starving, and you see the nonprofits going in there, but yet you're removed from it. Seeing it on TV, you may understand philosophically it's real, but you're removed from it. You can flip off the TV, and when you're there in person, you can't flip off. You can't flip off what you're seeing. You can't flip off your nose. You can't flip off the things that just burn a hole inside of your mind. So I'm just really grateful if you've made it this far to be able to listen to some of the experience that I've had. This took place about around 14 years ago, and I'm recently getting back involved with North Korean ministries and trying to shed some light on the kind of things that are happening right now. One last thing I want to talk about is on the same theme, that South Korea is kind of notorious for dog eating. I've had dog a few times myself, but that is like one of the worst things that most foreigners or international people think about South Korea. It's like the number one thing. I've gotten to some arguments with people online, and they call me a dog eater, even though I'm not even in South Korea. I'm in South Korea, but I'm not South Korean myself. But they use it as like a pejorative, as an insult. And yeah, I have eaten dog, and I'm not gonna deny it or apologize for it, because it's just an animal like any other animal you would eat. But every year here, it's a big deal that people come here and they raid these animal farms, and they rescue these dogs, and they take them back to America, and they just do all kinds of stuff. They go in there and film. I'd never owned a dog prior to eating the dog, so I've owned a dog now, and I could understand. You can philosophically get why someone would be more opposed to eating dog, because it seems like they could feel emotions. Their eyes look so human. So if it's something like a chicken, like you're like, that doesn't look anything even close to a human, or fish, different eyes, emotions. You don't really think of it if a chicken or pig can feel emotions. But I understand the problems that people have with that. But on the other hand, first of all, there's people who are starving, and so if someone eats an animal, be it a dog or a chicken or a cow, you can understand why, at least in my book, a lot of people, some atheists who I've encountered online, they can't even distinguish that it would be more important to feed a human than a dog. And this really just plays out when you see the fact that so many people get so upset about the dogs that are being eaten and in these farms, but just a couple hundred miles up to the north, there's actually humans. There's whole families who are put inside of these education camps, who are killed, who are beaten, tortured, raped, and the world just doesn't bat an eye about that. If we had the same kind of level of outrage or disdain for animals, like for people, than we did as animals. People are really big on animal cruelty. There's lots of PETA and other organizations, but if we use that same mentality on humanity and said we can take care of the animals, but like first and foremost, we need to deal with the humans here first, because that needs to be a priority. And the fact that I hate to get back again to atheism, but just a lot of atheists can't even recognize that basic fact. because I really do think that atheism attacks the dignity, the sacredness of the soul and the human person. So it denies a lot of things, like, saying we don't have souls or we don't have any intrinsic value. A lot of atheists will tell you the only real value that we have is what we put on it, on people's lives. And I don't agree with that one bit. Whether or not uh, Pol Pot or Ceausescu or Mao or whoever, Stalin, whoever it might be, if they don't put value on people's lives, if they believe in mass extermination or starvation of their own people, torture, that just, we have to say that is just objectively wrong, and without really a basis. I believe Christianity provides the best basis, but I'm sure other religions can get there as well. But for me, not having any religion, not having any kind of pill, that is the most dangerous thing. So yeah, I really want to thank you for listening. And if you're not subscribed, please do so. Check out my website at multiplemissions.com, where you can find more videos that I'm trying to do what I can to bring light to the issues in North Korea and some other things that are going around the world. And so I thank you for your time. And if you like this, please leave me a comment or share with a friend, or drop us an email at multiplemissions@gmail.com. Let us know if there's a topic you'd like to see us discuss, either on my podcast where I'm interviewing atheists, or maybe it's a topic you'd like to see me write about in a blog. But I would definitely love to hear from you. So I look forward to hearing from you, and God bless and goodbye.